What are we doing today? Today we are not, hold on. All right, so what are we doing today? Today is a fun little video around the same days of my other videos I'm filming around here, reacting to one of MrBallen's videos. People going places that they shouldn't go. Part 26, he's made a long series of this. He's crushing it. Love MrBallen. Been watching MrBallen for a long time now, probably like a year or two ago, something like that. He's been crushing it, been loving MrBallen, been watching all his stuff past then. He's a beast, he's an awesome creator. So if you haven't checked him out, dude's got 7 million subscribers. I don't know how you haven't checked him out yet. And today we're gonna be taking a look at one of the more funny videos that I think he's posted. His channel deals with the strange, dark, and mysterious. Not a whole lot of funny content to be made fun of there, but this is one of the more funny things. If you can find some of this morbid stuff funny for any reason, it's not funny like haha, but it's like funny like, oh, like that's why the fuck did this person do that? And that's what I think is funny, the decision making and everything else. These people literally should not have gone in these places. And there's one story in particular that just kind of makes me chuckle a little bit more than I should, to be honest. But here's a fun segue. I threw up an Instagram story that had to do with MrBallen because I found a car that's in the exact spec of shirts that MrBallen always wears, and I found a picture that MrBallen wears of it, and he reacted to the story. You know, I'm now in the DMs, he responded to it, so that's super cool. Thanks for the response, MrBallen. You'll be hearing more from me, I'm sure. And we're just having a good time. The sun is setting here, so we only have a little bit of time, but hey, MrBallen responded to the story that I made of him, and now we're watching his video, so I think it's perfect timing. And also I sent him the story because we're out in the woods now, and so I figured what better time to send MrBallen a DM than be in strange, dark, mysterious woods. This sounds super weird. I'm editing this right now, and this really surprised me. I just thought of this a second before I clicked on the video, and I thought to myself, this would be really weird if this happened, and it did. I clicked on the video for MrBallen's thing, and I'm like, you know, I used a completely random name, and I reference it later in the video that I didn't watch the first part of the video again because I had already seen it, and I hadn't watched it in months. I hadn't watched this video in months. I just made a completely random name in my mind, whatever came to me right when I was shooting, and I was like, oh, John or whatever. And I was like, oh, what if I used his correct name on accident? Like, that would be so freaky and weird. His name is John. The actual name of the guy that's in the video, his name is John. I hadn't watched that video in months, and I just came up with whatever name that was coming to me when I was recording it. I didn't watch it while I was recording, and I said Jimmy later on, and I'm like, no, it's John. But I was making it up still. And I'm like, no, that's not his correct name. I'm just making it up anyway. Of course it's wrong. And it was right. So that's weird. And then they're like, oh, tucking you in, little Jimmy. What was his name? I don't know. John. Wasn't even his correct name anyway.
On Monday, May 23rd, 2005, 37-year-old John Wilson got home from a very long day at work and immediately just collapsed into a sofa. And so now that he was home, he was totally exhausted and knew he should probably just go to bed, but he didn't want to. He didn't want to just go right to bed and then have to get back up again and go right back to work. And so he decided what he would do to unwind would be to go fishing, something he really loved to do, to a beach called Crystal Beach, which is right on the Gulf of Mexico. And instead of parking in one of the parking spaces in the lot, John, like he always did, just drove right through the gate out onto the actual beach. This beach actually had a reputation for having really hard-packed sand, almost like cement, because so many people like John would drive their vehicles out onto the beach. And although it wasn't completely low tide yet, it was making its way towards low tide, and so there was a lot of beach exposed. And so John drove for quite a while, and then he parked, still in the tidal zone, but well away from the water. John probably figured that he would not be there long enough for it to matter, because high tide was not for several hours. Then after a while, John got overwhelmingly tired. John decided he wanted to take a nap before he headed home again. And so he left the surf zone, he dropped his fishing rod in the back of his truck.
So here's a question. If being as a normal human person, if you get overwhelmingly tired at an odd hour fishing in the middle of the ocean and you've just parked your car up on the sand, what do? What's the order of events that you would take in order to get some sleep? Would you A, drive home and tough it out? B, go inside your car and sleep in your car? C, have somebody pick you up, order Uber or something like that, crash at a site closer or whatever, maybe if home is far away. There's a fourth option actually that only the galaxy-brained people among us will figure out and sniff out. There's actually option D.
He crawled underneath his truck to take a nap.
Climb underneath your car and try to take a nap underneath the car, on the sand. He's a fisherman. Even if these unfortunate events didn't happen, I'm sure he knows about the tide, high tide, low tide.
And so John drove for quite a while, and then he parked still in the tidal zone, but well away from the water. John probably figured that he would not be there long enough for it to matter, because high tide was not for several hours.
I understand people drive up on the beach or whatever where he is, but holy cow. How can you not, like, this just seems like the worst possible decision making that somebody could make. His homie probably fucking snuffed him out and killed him. And now the rest of his friends that didn't have anything to do with the murder, you know, they have to go in and the officials be like, yeah, John just I didn't watch the first part of the video again. I had a very specific part I wanted to get to. You know, John passed away last night. Oh my God, what happened to John? John went underneath his car, took a little nap ski. The car came down, compressed him, just like one of those satisfying hydro press YouTube videos, and crushed his dumb ass. What? You know, they didn't even say what. They're like, oh, that's our boy John, dumb as a bag of rocks. Even if it did somehow happen that way, and he was able to do this fully functioning and fully cognizant of his actions, how can you disrespect the dead man so much that you just accept the fact he took a nap under his truck? How can you accept that and be like, yep, John, just a dumb bag of rocks over there. That's totally him. He takes naps under anything. I like to think that this guy has a little subsection of stories where he just sleeps under everything that he can possibly find. They tell him at the sleepovers, John, there's not enough space over here. You've got to get kicked out of the house. John goes, you got floorboards, right? Prize those bitches up like they did when they entered the Death Star in Star Wars and they had to sneak under the Millennium Falcon. Nerd shit right there. Just said all of it right there. They had to sneak under the floorboards of the Millennium Falcon. That's this guy going at sleepovers. John, there's not enough room. Prise open floorboard, or better yet, just like in the little house tour that I did of this place, goes underneath the house. He could just go underneath the house. Well, fuck it. I go underneath my car to sleep at the beach. No, sir. This guy, when his parents come to tuck him in, when he's going to bed, he goes underneath the bed frame, and then they're like, oh, tucking you in, little Jimmy. What was his name? I don't know. John. Wasn't even his correct name anyway. Tucking John in, or whatever. Oh, are you okay? He's hiding under the bed frame. He goes, oh, could you check if there's any monsters on top of my bed? Like the monsters are like sleeping normally and he's the fucking guy underneath the bed. He's like going underneath the bed. Could you check if the monster's sneaking up on top of my bed? This guy is like the equivalent of taking all the time and process to be able to make a tent, right? In the woods, right? You make a tent or whatever, and then unstaking the thing, and then climbing underneath the tent and having the tent be like this just ginormous blanket over you. Like, what is this? How does he go and slip underneath things? If you were in that situation, you had to sleep right there. Go in the car. People sleep in the car quite often. There's so many people that sleep in cars. And I don't know, I guess he wanted to be unique or something. Whoa, so many people have slept in cars. this, we've never had any geniuses sleep underneath the cars. Better test this one out. This is really some wacky stuff, dude. Some wacky stuff. I had never heard anything like this before. This is really like, what was his mental state? It seemed like he was fine. He was fishing. How can you fit? Well, fishing, you just leave the rope there, and I guess some fish that's dumb enough to try to kill himself goes and does it. So I mean, I guess everybody in the story was off the meds a little bit there. If you can find this sort of thing funny, or these types of, you know, events funny in the right circumstances, then I think you'll probably get a kick out of this. If you can't, then, you know, I totally understand. I'm very sympathetic to these sort of things and losing people and stuff. You know, it's a very sad and traumatic thing, but there's just some times where it's like, you know, it's like when in one of the Halloween movies recently, where the guy, I think it's Jason and Michael Myers. Who is it? I think it's Michael Myers. I think Michael Myers is in Halloween, and he's in the latest one or whatever, and he kicks the door, and this lady's firing a shot at him, and as he kicks the door then moves the gun so it points towards her head, and she pulls the trigger, kills herself. Like, that's the type of shit where sometimes when a ridiculous thing happens, when an absolutely ridiculous thing happens, like when MrBallen incinerates the like button, that's no means in any form making fun of a dead person. I'm just saying it is wild, the circumstances and the things that led up to that, and the like crazy events and things that had to go through somebody's mind in order to have that insane type of event happen. Like, that's just such an outlandish event. It's almost funny. You can see how that's kind of almost funny, and seeing in, like, you know, different situations and like comparing it to Star Wars, it can be kind of comedic. My mind works weird, you know. I've lost quite a bit of people, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of, like, I like to have jokes, I like to have fun. These are things that, you know, kind of get a lot of people past that sort of thing as well. So you could see how, like, you know, my mind jumps to jokes a lot of the times when I hear things. I hope you guys can at least have a little chuckle, or at least appreciate or not be offended by what happened today. Hope you guys liked that video. Go over and check out MrBallen's channel. I'll link him in the description because he's just a beast. Go and subscribe over to my channel. I'd appreciate that. Like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you think of this. Would you have slept under the truck? Let me know what option you would choose. And if you had a third option, option E, can you think of a more outlandish thing to do? Tell me what's up. All right, just filmed that video reacting to the MrBallen stuff. I think we got a pretty good, cool view here. Perfect area to react to a MrBallen video, seeing that it's a strange, dark, and mysterious. Gotta react to it in the woods when you can. Just so happens that the reaction is a little on the funny side, okay? Which might not be, you know, exactly the reaction you want to have when you're watching a MrBallen video. But considering this is like one of the only MrBallen videos I've ever watched, and I'm like, okay, I could make a joke out of this. But it's just for my appreciation for insane, wild, quirky events. Not for making fun of a dead person. But check out our little scenery we got here. Perfect area to react to a MrBallen content.